There we go. I think we're live. So by now, the breaking news is that Jacinda Ardern has stunned New Zealand by announcing her shock resignation as Prime Minister. She announced in a press conference this morning that she will be stepping down as Prime Minister from the 7th of February next month. And there was a Labor caucus meeting in New Zealand this morning where she announced prior to coming out to the press conference. I'm sure many of the socials here in Perth this morning have already been discussing this, and there is plenty to talk about in relation to that. So those that haven't had the opportunity to see the press conference, I will show you right now. I'll just bring this up and you can have a look at the press conference where she announces her shock resignation. Here we go. Just need to bring that one back up there. Sorry for the tech issue. So there you go. That's the press conference that she announced this morning, that she was stepping down. Of course, there is plenty of commentary online by now, with all of media around the world talking about this particular issue. I mean, it's, you know, if you think about the COVID narrative and so forth, you know, that she took the stage every day to talk about when the daily figures and so on and so forth. And there she's actually graced the New Zealand citizens with what, 28-second announcement as to why she's stepping down. She does, as you heard, she stated that she doesn't have anything left in the tank anymore, and that is one of her primary reasons. Of course, her child is about to start primary school. She says, as anyone would do, that they want to spend more time with that, with their child as they're entering the primary school years. But I guess, you know, perhaps her child will not have to incur the attending primary school with such, well, some of the mandates that she'd placed put in place for New Zealand. You know, she has, there's no doubt that not that mainstream media would have conveyed this particular issue, but Jacinda Ardern has committed more atrocities, but with basic human rights than, well, probably second to Justin Trudeau, both being a World Economic Forum graduate. So I'm going to try and see whether I can just sort of keep this a little bit interactive. I will be trying to pick up your comments as I'm doing this. I'm just trying to juggle between the computer and also the comments online and what I just want to bring to you. I've just put a couple of bits and pieces to there. Just going to pick up on one comment. Jason has just said that she's made her money. So just on that particular point there, that you know, some of you may know, or you may not know, that Jacinda Ardern in June last year, she actually attended New York City on a business trip, and it's what's I find quite interesting with that particular business trip is it happened to coincide with a call from the founder of the World Economic Forum, Klaus Schwab, where he put out a call to all the leaders and all future, I guess I don't know what you want to say there, but maybe I'll just run with psychopathic elites, that he wanted them to unite, and he put a call out that happened to coincide with Jacinda Ardern's visit in New York City, and she attended the BlackRock headquarters at the time. And you could argue that at the particular time, the share price of BlackRock back then was about $587.10 US. You know, it had an all-time high of $973.16. You know, managing as of January this year, it's been purported over $10 trillion of global assets worldwide. And as of June last year, when she, I guess, answered the call by Klaus Schwab, the share price was down to $387 US. So we don't know about that. I'm just going to bring you up. Let's just have a look at a little bit. I've got a little bit of footage of her. That's Jacinda. I'll just get this set up here. So there we go. That's a bit of a look there at Jacinda. That was June last year, and that was footage of her coming out of the BlackRock headquarters, which coincided with, if you go back through and search, I'm sure many of you will perhaps actually done that already. And but it's quite easy. You can find footages of Klaus Schwab putting a call out to the World Economic Forum and leaders, those elites, as he calls it, globally, to amalgamate, of course, the control of BlackRock. And you may see there's a lot that's been coming out in the news recently talking about BlackRock and the funding with the Ukraine and the Russian war, which is another hot topic. I daren't say too much about it, I guess, for fear of censorship. But when you have things like BlackRock and Vanguard sponsoring the war efforts, and it's come out recently that they are also sponsoring the rebuilding. So not only are they fighting the levelling of the place, or funding the levelling of the place, they're also, you know, they're behind the reconstruction as well. So a very good each way bet if you're in a position to make it, I guess. And there we go. So one of the comments that's talking online that seems to be trending quite well, and is that she has today. So New Zealand is undergoing their election in October this year, and the polls certainly haven't been great for her, and they haven't been great for some time. But of course, mainstream media, you will not get to see that information, because the mainstream media just don't want to push that narrative. If you do a quick Google search, you'll see that her polling has fallen down to something like 37%. I think that's the number that I was able to ascertain to see if there was any more data in relation to that. But it's a media blackout. Pretty much the same as here in Western Australia. We have had the same media blackout with Premier Mark McGowan, who on his election as Premier has slipped from his 96%, and the last poll that you've probably seen for that is around the 63%. So you know, plenty of comments coming forward, you know, that she wasn't liked, and certainly you know, she talks about, as does Premier Mark McGowan as well, talks about the pandemic response. But again, I think it's you know, it's undeniable that she has caused the New Zealand people, and there's plenty of people here in New Zealand as well, and we've had, you know, we've had two people from the Team Freedom Media That's their home place, and they're here in Australia. They've moved their lives out to here, and they're watching what Jacinda's doing to the country and to the people. Of course, you know, plenty of footage on socials that is not mainstream, because you simply can't post some of the footage that has occurred in New Zealand in terms of the people coming out to protest against her mandates, media blackouts and the like. Of course, Jacinda Ardern famously spoke about dobbing on your neighbour. That's where it first originated on, you know, in terms of the COVID. I do want to say, you know, a person that many may also follow as well, a different viewpoint. He's been putting a few videos out of late, and he did a post this morning that's the Hang Loose Recluse. Always good value to have a listen to him. I'm just going to bring that one up now for you. He's obviously, well, probably through the day, he's probably at work taking his morning tea break, and has launched, put out a little audio clip. Let's just have a listen to the Hang Loose Recluse. Okay, so I'm just getting that there is no audio with that particular clip. I'll just have a quick look and see as to why. If I can just get a comment in terms of, is it my audio or audio of the clip? If I could perhaps get some feedback in relation to that, that will help me with diagnostics. This story came up this morning. I was in the middle of doing another stream, and or preparing for another stream, and I just thought, you know, it's too good an opportunity to have this discussion. And because we know, you know, you take the passing of Queen Elizabeth, for example, for nearly 2 weeks, it was nothing else but you just won't see this on this particular issue. When does a Prime Minister just come out of the blue? There was no warning signs with this, other than those that were checking and monitoring the polls. So I'm getting that all of the audios are missing on the clips. That is a little frustrating. I will see if I can try and rectify that. Where are we? I'm just trying to see, let's just, I'll just try playing the last one again. Okay, hopefully we've got some audio back on that one. I was trying to see if I could just pick it up on the TV here. I'll just turn that down so I don't get the double echo whilst I try, and still no sound. Thank you, Jason, for that feedback. I guess on the fly it's going to be quite hard to try and work out why. So yeah, and I do get, you know, in terms of the audio, I have had this previously where looking at, okay, I think I know one of the reasons why. So here we go here, HDMI 2, let's just turn that one on. So I think on that note, I think I may have found the reason why in terms of the audio. So I am going to just go back and recap. Just bear with me. Thank you for the patience. As I say, I was in the middle of building another live stream this morning, and which I probably wouldn't have got out today, but probably over the next couple of days on another subject matter. And then with this came up here, I thought I'd just try and whack together a few clips and get out a bit of a stream in relation to this. So haven't had time for the team to come in, and I'm trying to sort of drive everything here on my own until they get in here. But I think I've worked out the reason why, and on that basis, I am going to just bring this up again. And hopefully, if I can just get a comment there, Jason, if you wouldn't mind, if we can see if this has solved the issue on the audio. This is the press conference that Jacinda Ardern gave this morning. Okay, so I'm getting the comments here. Still no comments. That's a bummer. So I'm just going to do one more quick try of this, and then I'll see. Now, just in relation to thanks Jason, thanks Jane, thanks Tracy. In relation to your feedback, I'm just going to see whether this will work, whether this will do here, and whether I can get this here. So let's have a look. I'm just going to bring this one up and see whether this solves the audio. If not, I will just push on with the stream and just give some commentaries based on that. So thank you, Leanne. I'm getting that the mic is working, but the video audio, the video clips are not working. So let's just have another try. I just need to apply just one more setting here. No, we should be able to go straight into it.
And so today I'm announcing that I will not be seeking re-election.
Okay, so there is one more.
And that my term as Prime Minister will conclude no later than the 7th of February. This has been the most fulfilling 5.5 years of my life, but it has also had its challenges. Summer, I had hoped to find a way to prepare not just for another year, but another term, because that is what this year requires. I have not been able to do that. And so today I'm announcing that I will not be seeking re-election, and that my term as Prime Minister will conclude no later than the 7th of February. This has been the most fulfilling 5.5 years of my life, but it has also had its challenges. Amongst an agenda focused on housing, child poverty and climate change, we encountered a major biosecurity incursion, a domestic terror event, a major natural disaster, a global pandemic.
So I can see the audio going out now on that. I apologise for that. As I say, I've just sort of scrambled a few things together. You know, it's never easy just to go live, I guess, with all the moving pieces. I've said it many times in the past. I can see the audio now going out with that, in addition to the comments. Joe saying that she's horrid, and John saying that she is a good actor indeed. And I guess, and I do want to, I guess, in fairness to the other clips, show that, well, Hang Loose Recluse, he certainly has a different view, and I thought it was quite funny. You know, his voiceovers and so forth, very unique voice, but it's his laugh that got me this morning when I started just listening to a couple of the things that were happening on social. I'm going to bring you what he had to say about it this morning.
Leave them. So if the mainstream media said that she resigned...
Okay. Except I've loaded up that video on the other folder and I need to turn the audio on, so we're going to go back to that again.
Jacinda Ardern just resigned. I just heard it on the radio. I don't know whether it's true because I Googled it. It doesn't show up, but it did say it on the mainstream radio, so it must be true. Anyway, it's times like that that we want to believe the mainstream media. You know, I believe them in times like that, but other times I don't believe them. So if the mainstream media said that she resigned, it must be true, but Google search, nothing comes up. Anyway, it must be new, fresh news. Jacinda Ardern has just resigned. Thank you.
Thank you again, Duncan. Certainly, well, for all of your support in the past in terms of your comments, and again, I'm just going to pick that one up again. Jason, thank you, Jason. I think I've solved all the issues, and we should be able to go forward from here. As I said, one of the comments that was happening, or that is trending now, is the question: should Jacinda Ardern have resigned well before now? So in terms of the polls and things like that. Now she says that she simply doesn't have enough fuel in the tank, and that's her reason for not being able to continue to go forward, that she just can't do that for the next election. But I would, I guess, argue and say that you know, a Prime Minister, you know, even if she wasn't polling well, then you know, when do you know that a Prime Minister is going to step down? I mean, it's just almost unheard of. So I would say, I guess the speculation is, and she did say some of this in a press conference, that people will speculate. Of course they will, Jacinda. You've just come out of the blue without warning and resigned. So people will speculate in relation to that. That comes with public office, I guess, and the people would be entitled to make their speculations without character assassinations, unlike what you've done on the people of New Zealand. But then her judgment day would have been October this year, when the citizens of New Zealand, those that can vote back in New Zealand, would have passed their judgment about the popularity, and it's always a true indicator. The true indicator of a politician, as I've said, is can they walk down the street? Can they walk down a street without a heavy police presence? She hasn't been able to do that for some time, and it's very similar to Premier Mark McGowan. Every time you see Premier Mark McGowan moving, even within the sanctity of Parliament House, he's heavily surrounded, you know, by police. Of course, he pushes out the threats and so on and so forth that he's actually seen. There is some speculation behind some of those threats as well, that there's the media announcement typically happens. They announce everything. Mark McGowan's been threatened. People have been charged. And there's no further follow-up in relation to that, nothing. And inevitably what you find out is behind the scenes, you know, charges are withdrawn, and so on and so forth. Premier Mark McGowan actually did this in relation to the defamation case with Clive Palmer. And that was the woman who crashed into the Telegram light pole a couple of hundred metres away from his house. And some may recall, if you were following that particular trial, that in his evidence, Mark McGowan said that his son went out of the house to offer the woman assistance, and the woman threatened his son, which the police had already made a statement about that some months before the trial, and it simply, it was just an unfortunate coincidence. It wasn't a threat on Premier Mark McGowan. It simply was just the wrong place at the wrong time. I think that she was somewhat intoxicated, don't quote me on that, but the police wrote it off as an accident, and there was no mention of Premier Mark McGowan's son having been threatened. So I'm just going to bring myself up to date. I'm just making reference back to the Premier Mark McGowan in terms of, you just look at the security that he's had. There's a very good stream and some footage that you've seen of Richie from Max Freedom, and that was at one of the Kill the Bill protests. That particular footage had finished for the day, and they were walking back to their vehicle, and they saw Mark McGowan on the day that he'd actually pushed the motion through that they must debate the emergency management COVID-19 amendments on that day. No further time would be given. He didn't even owe the people of Western Australia the courtesy of being in Parliament that day. He went for a run down on the foreshore, and Max Freedom came across him, and you can see the police presence there, and he quickly scurried into the back of a car and drove off. So that, now I think it's interesting in relation to this, that this particular issue, it comes back to what I was saying previously, and that is that when you get a 25, let's call it 30 seconds, let's just keep it at 30 seconds, a 30-second press conference from Jacinda Ardern, who's come out without warning and said, I will not be contesting the election. In fact, I'm going to stand down February the 7th as Prime Minister. So we've seen this before, I guess, and if you talk about in state politics in New South Wales, we've seen Gladys Barbecue Chicken, as she got that particular name, or Berejiklian, she stood down all of a sudden and said that there was nothing to speculate. Of course, we then know that with the ICAC, that she had some incredibly favourable, unfavourable remarks and findings at ICAC, and there was issues around corruption and so on and so forth. But it's very interesting how this particular issue has already started circulating, not on mainstream media, but on the alternate media, I guess, and even Fox News in the US. And Tucker Carlson, those that would follow him as well, they would, well, I'm going to bring it up now for you. Let's have a listen to what Tucker Carlson has already put a piece out in relation to this early this morning. I'll bring it to you now.
And some rare good news, the appalling Prime Minister of New Zealand, Jacinda Ardern, that's the lady with the big teeth who tormented her citizens, has just announced she is leaving office. Here she was moments ago.
Announcing that I will not be seeking re-election, and that my term as Prime Minister will conclude no later than the 7th of February.
Most authoritarian leader that country has ever had, and no one else comes close. An appalling abuser of human rights of her own people. She, of course, earned the admiration of Western leaders, including former CIA Director Michael Hayden, by ushering in an era of near-totalitarianism in New Zealand. She shut down the entire country over a single COVID case. She told everyone to stay in their bubbles. She told citizens to inform on their neighbors by calling the police if they saw them outside. I'm not making this up, by the way. We kept a video record. Here's some of it.
Stay local and do not congregate. Don't talk to your neighbours. Please keep to your bubbles. It comes down again to those very simple principles. We know from overseas cases of the Delta variant that it can be spread by people simply walking past one another. So keep those movements outside to the bare minimum. If someone refuses in our facilities to be tested, they have to keep staying. So they won't be able to leave after 14 days. They have to stay on for another 14 days. So it's a pretty good incentive. You either get your tests done and make sure you're cleared, or we will keep you in a facility longer. So I think most people will look at that and say, I'll take the I'll take the test. You can now see family and friends again in their homes and use the bathroom inside. Luxury.
What are the chances she was a puppet of the Chinese government? We don't have enough evidence to prove that, but we would rate that as about 100% likely. Fortunately, there is a tiny shred of democracy left in New Zealand. Ardern's party was becoming very unpopular, so before she could lose, she's quitting.
So there we go. An interesting overview from Tucker Carlson in relation to that. I'm just going to try and bring up some comments there. And I am saying I do want to come back to one that Darren has said, and I guess it rightly so. Let's not get excited about this is one person. That all politicians vote on the legislation, and we've certainly seen that here in Australia, that there is a very, very extremely, and unfortunately, a sad indictment for those that are actually voting against what, let's just say, is it 95%? It's probably not. You have Senator Malcolm Roberts, Pauline Hanson, you have Senator Gerard Rennick, Alex Antic, to name a few that, that's 4 or 5 that are really just speaking out against where the rest are just sitting there and are really just nodding yes to this whole the whole tyranny and what they're looking to introduce. So I think that's a good point, Darren, that you bring up there, that they all participate. And I've said this before, and I really wish I could remember who actually made the quote, but we've shifted in terms of Parliament, and we've done this a long time in terms of our democratic voting system, that it is no longer the person who votes that has the power. It's the people that count the votes, unfortunately, that have the power. Now, mainstream media would call that a conspiracy theory. There's still many, many unanswered questions in relation to the previous federal election, and there will be many, many unanswered questions in relation to Jacinda Ardern's sudden resignation. And we would be, I guess, waiting with bated breath, I would be, to find out and see what it is that, what is it? What is it? Is it an internal party struggle that has taken place, and or is it simply because of the polls that she knows? And when I say internal party struggle, that somebody there now wants to take over, and Jacinda Ardern's done all the dirty work, and now they're going to come in and maybe try and you can't make poo smell like roses. I mean, it's just impossible. So has there been a dirt file that's been amassed on her, and it's been presented to her, and she simply has no choice but to fall on her sword. But either way, it is breaking news. It is a massive, massive story, I guess, and more will unfold as the days go forward. Just excuse me one moment while I try and pick up. I think it, absolutely amazing, I guess, just on this stream already, that it's generating 100 or over 100 comments in relation to this. As I say, one of the opinion polls that's going around is, should Jacinda Ardern have resigned some time ago? That's a very big and valid question, and we're looking at what will she do after this? She says that she is going to be taking care of her daughter as she ends primary school, but somebody who is used to the power, somebody who used to the limelight, and will that be enough for her to actually sink back into the limelight and do nothing? We know with Scott Morrison, for example, that even having lost the federal election, that he's refused to step down, although there's perhaps considerable reason as to why he should. But he's still holding in there, albeit sitting on the backbench. Scandals and things like that, it's really hard to consider what the scandals are around it. That could only just be speculation. And so just looking at some of the headlines here, I'm just going to bring up, we'll just get that one out of the way. Some of the headlines, the reason behind Jacinda Ardern's shock resignation as New Zealand's PM. Hang loose recluse, you heard him say on Google he couldn't find anything, but it's certainly well and truly alight now. And yeah, scandals and speculation, what is there? Of course, there was some story going back. Let me just come back to this, for example. Do I think, or is it possible with somebody that has amassed, I guess, the power that she would be accustomed to, not what people think, of her, but what she thinks that she's there doing her role and her job. You only need to go back to when was it? Around 2008. Jacinda Ardern, she was the senior policy advisor to Tony Blair, the UK Prime Minister. So, and then I guess through that particular apprenticeship, let's call it an apprenticeship, and of course that we know Tony Blair has links to the World Economic Forum. We've heard Klaus Schwab, there's been many videos out there where he's talking about the infiltration of the graduates of these young global leader elites, as he says, his words, that have infiltrated many positions of parliament, including, and he uses the prime example of Justin Trudeau and Jacinda Ardern as he's leading World Economic Forum graduates. But again, back to 2018, you will find that she was the president of the International Union of Socialists, in a youth role. And that saw her travel the world. She's took that role, to Jordan, Israel, Algeria, and China. I mean, is there any coincidence? Coincidence there? If we're talking about International Union of Socialists and the agendas that some of these, we need to only just stop and think for a moment the atrocities that are committed in China, that mainstream media are absolutely trying to keep a lid on. Look what's happening in Brazil right at the moment. And again, I mean, it was only 10 days ago that I saw an article on ABC talking about Brazil, that there's a few people that are protesting against against an election that they're calling to be fake. And you have millions of people in Brazil on the streets protesting about this election. That says something, but very rare footage of coming there. So the atrocities that we hear coming out of China are a very socialist type view. Then we have Jacinda Ardern, who has spent time in her role, in a professional capacity role, in China. So she goes back to, 5.5 years she's been in the role, I think August 2017. She was then assumed the opposition leader in Parliament, Labour Party leader then, and of course she became elected, I think late, October, because the election's October this year. Yeah, 5.5 years. She's not going to make 6 terms or that last term, as she's saying. A comment here talking about Lewis saying, smoking and growing marijuana. So, there's a scandal. Is that a scandal? Is that a conspiracy theory? No. Jacinda Ardern has admitted in her youth to smoking marijuana. Now, there's some videos out there that would show her smoking something that is more than marijuana. I won't go into those because let's just stick with what can be proved. And it can be proved that Jacinda Ardern, by her own admission, has partaken in the wacky weed. Let's just see if I can find an article in relation to that. So now, if we look at things of scandals that happened in the past, you only need to look at Dominic Perrottet and what's happened with him on his 21st. Surprising 10 weeks out of an election, how that's been brought up. to derail the Liberal Party for his re-election. So that, you just need to have a look at that particular thing. So there is a scandal there with Jacinda Ardern that she has a history. She's admitted by her own admission to smoking marijuana back in her early days. Is that enough for her to not run the re-election, given the position that she's brought herself into? I would suggest not. I guess the speculation would be that there's something deeper to this particular issue, which would then be a question of watch this space. Watch this space as to what would happen. There is some speculation with her husband, and her husband, who has a media background himself, and I'm just trying to see if I can find something on that. It is here. I'll just bring this up here, and perhaps I'll bring it up on this one here. Clark Gayford, and there's a lot of speculation if you look online talking about there was some allegations that he was purportedly charged by police, which a search of mainstream media will find that it is, as you can see here, the headline that Jacinda Ardern's husband, Clark Gayford, finally breaks his silence about that rumour that was circulating by thousands of online trolls. Now, I probably will exercise a little bit of caution with this here, because there was a New Zealand radio station that actually had a settlement case with Clarkford Gayford. There's a little clue, Gayford, in relation to a defamation about what they said. So I won't be speculating as to what that rumour was. I will simply be highlighting to you that there was a substantive rumour, which of course the police have come out, and we've seen the support that the police have given Jacinda in relation to her COVID backgrounds. Interestingly enough as well, Jacinda's father was a police officer himself. So she certainly knows, she would have those that can rally around. We've seen what the police and New Zealand Immigration have done to Avi Yamini, and that is by denying that he was blocked going over there to cover a protest rally. And the police have come out and said, no, they did nothing to that, and now through FOIs, he's found out, or they've found out, that that there were, the New Zealand police had a very big hand in stopping Avi going there and covering the rallies that would have gone worldwide. And some of the footage that we've seen Rebel News do of Justin Trudeau in Canada, those that don't watch mainstream media, and we would have seen the same in New Zealand as well. So I see, John, you're potentially on to the rumour, and I'll leave it at that. So as I say, I will exercise caution and simply talk about headlines like this one here that just says that he finally breaks his silence about that rumour. Interestingly enough, mainstream media gives an exclusive to mainstream media where he breaks his silence. So you've only heard, as with many things, you've only heard one side of the story with this, and everything else in terms of the other side has been heavily, heavily censored. So just while I do that, I'm just going to have a look and see here where I am. Okay, so I'm just going to bring up another video.
Jacinda Ardern just resigned. I just heard it on the radio. I don't know whether...
I just want to take that one out because I want to add in this video source here for... there's always a little bit... Oh, I don't think... so earlier... yeah, I'll just load this one here because we did have the audio... we did have the audio issue earlier when I spoke about about BlackRock, and again, just to recap, at the same time, by coincidence, Klaus Schwab put out a call for global elites and world leaders to amalgamate and look at partnering further with BlackRock. We know, as I've mentioned, over $10 trillion worth of global assets that they manage. Jacinda Ardern in June last year flew to New York City, and she happened to be there when Klaus put that call out, and she went and attended BlackRock. Of course, very coy, as we've just heard from Tucker Carlson, calls her, the Prime Minister with the big teeth. And very coy when she was intercepted, door stopped, if you like, coming out of the BlackRock building. I'll play it again because there is audio behind there now, and I apologise because I was just trying to sort that issue. Let's just make sure that we have the audio on for that one, which we do, and here we go.
For Ardern, New York was meant to be about trade and tourists. After her COVID nightmare back home this morning, she woke up finally here in the city that never sleeps, here to buddy up to the States and open more doors to trade.
Prime Minister, how's your day going?
Oh, it's busy but fantastic.
Like the doors to $10 trillion investment firm BlackRock. But Ardern is not just a brand ambassador, she's the Prime Minister with power, and those she's meeting know it. For Ardern, New York was meant to be.
So will we see her pop up down the track with a role associated with BlackRock? So just got to turn the audio off on this at my end. Yeah, here we go. I'm back to. Sorry, I've just got the audio coming back in my ear, so it's a little confusing when that's happening. Just on the video. So if I switch it off here, yeah. So there we go. So still seeing your comments coming through. Thank you for those. Darren, you're making a comment there about contact details through Facebook. Just flick a message to via Messenger. Simply, back in the days when we were covering rallies and things like that, even Messenger, we were getting over 1,000 messages a day. I'd love to put a number out there on this budget. There is only the self-funding that I'm doing to do this, so I don't have the ability to run a separate private mobile number, and hence the reason why I'm not able to put that out there. But you can flick an email off to admin@freedommediawa.org, and or alternatively send a message via Messenger. You will find that on Facebook. Those watching the stream on Facebook, that you can see the ability to send a message via Messenger. So let's just have a look. I'm going to try and pick up a couple of comments. I think I've pretty much sort of pushed out a couple of different viewpoints of what's actually occurred, the breaking news, and it is a case of watching this space, because as time goes on, as we know with Gladys. So, well, here's one. I'm just going to bring this up here. Do you remember the day that, the time and day and where you were when Gladys actually announced her resignation? I do, because I was live streaming. I was covering a rally that was outside the WA Health Department. And at that particular time, I'm just going to bring that up for you, because I might even just play that just for memory's sake. So am I going to have the audio issue? That's the question. Let me just get my head around this. Okay, the only way I think I might be able to do it is if I put my mic close to the, let's just see if this works, because I think we will have the audio issue when I'm driving it from the laptop. I didn't quite get that right, and I don't have it on an SD card to pop out. So let's just bear with me while I just pick up this particular clip, because like many things, I'm sure people remember the time and place where you were when you heard about the 9/11 and where you were with Princess Diana. And I certainly remember where I was on the news that Gladys Berejiklian, or Barbecue Chicken, resigned, and that was November 2021. I think I'm just about trying to find it now. I was trying to get. No, if I can't find it, here we go. Okay, so I'm just going to, let me just think how I'm going to do this. I'm just going to change the audio on here. No, probably not going to be able to get that to you in terms of audio, because just the way that I've set it up here. Let's just see. If okay, I might be able to. Let's just set it to that, and then if I play this one and bring up this, make this largely. Sorry about the info, and sorry about the quality of the audio.
News from the Financial Review that Gladys Berejiklian has resigned.
I have no option but to resign from the office.
Ooh.
To you by Freedom Media WA.
So there we go. That's a little bit of the past history. I'm sure there's similar reactions around the globe, and most certainly in New Zealand. Can you imagine how they would be feeling now that Jacinda Ardern, there's no doubting that the popularity of her in polls has been on the decline for some time, and not that she's ever going to admit to it. Hopefully I've got the audio back to here. Well, we called her bin chicken, yep, so I have heard bin chicken or barbecue chicken in relation to that. And certainly you need to have some comedy relief when it comes to this type of news. And now it's not to withstand, I guess, with the popularity, and who really knows what the facts and the figures are. But again, just to recap, in terms of basic human rights infractions, there is no doubting that Jacinda, I should say, or Cindy, as some of them call her, has executed and employed on the New Zealand people, and even those travelling to New Zealand, because she was one of the ones that was touting the bubble, and then she, she changed her mind. She backflipped on that quite quickly in relation to that Jacinda. Yep, thank you, John, for that particular one there. Now, just humour is one of those things. Just bear with me whilst I do this, because I am going to load. I am going to load up just behind the scenes another one for you. This is just a very, very quick look at humour, if you like. So I've played to you her her thing. Now, I'll just say that the question here, why is the TV crooked on the back here? So it has got a mount, it is flexible, it's adjustable, I can move it around. In terms of that. Now, the friction points on the back there, it doesn't matter how much I level it up. I've brought it a little bit out now. I'll get it level, and then over the next day it will just drop down. So it does annoy the crap out of me. I do know there's not much that I can actually do. I've tried everything. I've tried putting a friction washer in behind it, so without having to go back to the drawing board. Perhaps, I don't know, if somebody else out there has a TV mount that they think they might be able to fix this particular problem, and you would like to donate it, then I would happily take that off your hand, because obviously the one that I bought here, which was near $100, is not quite hacking it, but you know, and it was rated. It's not the weight of the TV because the TV is well within the capabilities of the load capacity of the actual bracket. So yeah, Jane, no, it's not. Wasn't deliberate. It's just one of those things. You know, unfortunately, as I say, you can see the old mic points here on the desk here. And there was a time, you know, the whole mic system that was $1,000 odd. I covered this on a previous stream, where I did, you know, I did ask for people, if you found this stream or the streams that that we've been doing here of benefit, then would just, you know, donate $1, and that $1 together will enable me to replace these because these didn't work. They picked up a lot of noise, and so on and so forth. So, so there we go. Hopefully that explains the TV here. As I say, if I reset it on the back, then it will drop back there, even with a couple of washers in here. I mentioned humour. Let me just make sure that the audio is on this. This is a very, very quick edit, I guess, but let's just say, in terms of a non-mainstream media, if non-mainstream media were to cover this, which I am covering this particular breaking news story, and I'm having a little bit of a chat, something different, trying to work in off some of your comments coming through, and thank you for those comments. Let's have a look at how the press conference may be.
And so today I'm announcing that I will not be seeking re-election, and that my term as Prime Minister will conclude no later than the 7th of February.
Good evening, Sam.
Mr. Drebin, Jane, always nice to see nice people.
Sam, play our song. Just one more time.
Of course.
Ding dong, the witch is dead. Witch, oh witch, the wicked witch. Ding dong, the witch is
Sam,
dead.
Sam, that's enough. Play the other one, please.
The Messiah. In fact, I think it's fucking boring. But your voice makes even a hack like Handel seem like a genius. Hallelujah! Hallelujah!
And so today I'm announcing.
So just a quick edit there. It takes a lot of time to substitute somebody's face in on an image, and yeah, that was just something that just thrown together quickly. A little bit amateurish. You get the idea in relation to that, John. As you say, you know, yeah, if the TV mounts and equipment, a lot more manufacturing is made here in Australia, we probably wouldn't you know, have issues like this. But it's one of those things. Trying to fix it. When I simply don't get the time to do what I would like to do, because there's so much to do, including bringing a stream like this, many pieces to the puzzle. But there we go. That's a look. The breaking news, recapping that Jacinda Ardern this morning, without warning, there was no inclination at all, has come out and announced that she will be standing down as Prime Minister on February the 7th, in less than 2 weeks, with the election for Prime Minister coming up later this year in October. She has been on quite a rapid decline in terms of the polls. The last figure, as I mentioned at the head of the stream, was somewhere around the 37%. That's where she's sitting, which is interesting, I guess, in the sense that because we know that you know, the polls tended to, here in Australia, if we look at that as an example, they tend to level up. There might be, you know, 5-6 percentage points difference between it, but they're pretty close to around 50, you know, 42 47%, somewhere around there, or 52-47 or 52-48, somewhere like that. In her case, you know, she's down to, or got as low as 37%. So that's just a short stream here. Thank you for those that have commented. I can see your comments coming through. Perhaps keep the comments going if you like. As I said at the head of the stream again, one of the polls that are going down or going around is, should Jacinda Ardern have resigned well before now? So that I guess, yeah, just a comment. I'm doing a hang loose recluse here with Nico when he goes to sign off one of his streams. He's about to end the stream and then somebody comes through a comment. John's making the comment here that if mainstream media are reporting on it as being 37%, then he's putting the proposition that essentially it's probably closer to 12%. And you know, for a Prime Minister to come out, even though they know that the polls, because we know leading into elections, they all come out and say they don't take any regard of poll information at all. They completely, they carry on with their campaigns, they disregard the polls. But 37% or a figure that is genuinely lower than that, that she wouldn't have an idea of what it's about. And you only just need to look at the ongoing protests that have occurred, that are still going on in New Zealand. I mean, if you want to look at a Prime Minister, that's actually that's making decisions for the welfare of the people, you only need to look at the recent story of Baby Will. Baby Will, and I'm sure many of those are familiar with that particular story, but the parents were not opposing a medical procedure on their young child Will, that had a congenitive heart condition. It wasn't life-threatening, but it did require surgery. The parents acknowledged that. There was no dispute, absolutely no dispute. And I guess, you know, we know that, that Supreme Court judges around many democracies are a political appointment, and that and we've seen the influence of politics in New Zealand that went so far as to say all the parents requested was that, because they had maintained body autonomy through this, is that their son Will be afforded a blood transfusion which he needed as a result of the operation, to be given unvaccinated blood. And the New Zealand government, through the Supreme Court, took the parents away to with a temporary custody order. They came in the dark of night. The parents were sleeping. Baby Will was sleeping. They came in to have a conversation, and they essentially took Baby Will from the mother. The footage, I mean, you would not be human if that does not invoke a tear from your eye, a lump in the back of your throat. And what type of Prime Minister would actually not come out and just acknowledge that there is a possibility? And I might say on that particular issue as well, their parents, on their own accord, went to great extent to identify a suitable blood donor that met the criteria that they wanted, and the hospital simply had a decision to say, yes, we will take that person and make this operation and the whole situation better for the parents and for Baby Will. But no, the New Zealand government and the court system with the police came in, took the baby away. Now there was some reports after that unconfirmed that Baby Will was given blood of the type that the parents were seeking from the outset, but we will never know whether that was an admission or a backtrack of Jacinda Ardern and the federal parliament. Was it a case of rubbing the lantern, and once the genie's out of the bottle, they just didn't know how to put it back in relation to that? But the outcry, not only in New Zealand, in Australia, but globally over that issue, you know, that would have to be led in terms of that. Jacinda Ardern had the ability to step in and talk about that particular issue, but she didn't. She maintained, as you've heard from Tucker Carlson, she was the person that said, dob in on your neighbours, dob in on your friends if they're breaching COVID, COVID policy. And yeah, so there we go. That's the end of the stream. I think I will wind it up again. Thank you for your comments coming through. Seeing that, I think there's probably a fair point just to mention as well, something that's not being reported on mainstream media, but John's raising the point. We know that the globalists, the elites, are meeting currently in Davos, and we certainly have seen some glimpses on mainstream media talking about the security effort. 5,000 heavily armed security force personnel, private contractors, keeping the security of Davos. And you can see Rebel News' Avi Yemini is over there with his boss at the moment, and they actually doorstopped yesterday. They doorstopped the Pfizer CEO. Have a look at that video and see the extent that he didn't want to answer the questions, and he turned himself into a dead end. He was so intent on trying to get away from Isra, I think it is, his boss, and Avi asking him the questions, very valid questions, and that's what we saw. But the point that John was saying here is that, you know, they're, again, unconfirmed. When I say unconfirmed, I'm talking about insofar as mainstream media. Mainstream media have not reported that there was a call for the elites to use their private jets and to hell with the climate change and the carbon footprints, that they were calling for unvaccinated pilots to fly them there. And you know, something that you won't hear on mainstream media, even so far as even mentioning this here. That's probably, or could be, who knows, enough to say. I'm not putting it out as confirmed, I'm saying it's unconfirmed. But we do know this, just on that particular point there, Joe, and thank you for just bringing that up, that the FAA, the Federal Aviation Authority, both or here, and we saw this break a couple of weeks ago in the US. So the FAA, and I guess those that are familiar with Graham Hoodie, as he's well known, the infamous Qantas pilot who stood himself down because of the vaccinations, and he's been talking about this issue for some time now, from the very day. But we're now seeing that the FAA have acknowledged that pilots, in order to keep their flying accreditation, have to undergo, I think it's 3 months or 6 months, don't quote me, it's somewhere around there, that they have to undergo medical examinations to continue flying long-haul flights, and particularly when they're flying 747s and 737s, the like of that. And they're finding that their ECGs are returning abnormalities in terms of the electroactivity in the heart. And we've seen Senator Gerard Rennick ask these questions here in Parliament. What did our Civil Aviation Authority, what precautions, what risk assessments, what protocols did they go undertake before they mandated on pilots to get the vaccination? And of course, you can jump onto Senator Gerard Rennick's Facebook page and see him elicit the answers back from them that they did nothing. They did nothing of all of this. So everything that's happening forward, that they potentially are going to be blindsided. They don't know what the future is because they simply haven't done the research. So it would be good, Sharon, to defund mainstream media. We certainly, yeah, that would be great. Certainly if resources could come into independence, it doesn't matter what an independent platform, you know, looks like. You know, if you're getting the content out, if you're getting the view and the feel and the pulse of people on the street, and you're actually falling back to what journalism is about, where your first and foremost duty is to put questions so that it can elicit responses, particularly from politicians, so that they can hear both sides. It's not up for mainstream media to tell you what the outcome of what a politician's trying to say. They simply ask questions. From the politician's response, they ask the easy questions and they ask the hard questions, and then you're able to make an informed decision, it's a credibility issue. You know, based on their answer, how do you feel? Which one does that? But we've certainly seen Jacinda has done this as well, and where there has been an independent reporter going to ask or trying to ask her a question at a press conference, and she infamously has said, I don't take questions from you because it's only accredited media, meaning only those media that she knows the questions, what they're going to ask, and that media that's going to portray her in the good case. So how we do that, I don't know, to fund mainstream media. So yes, John Arvey did a great job in terms of that, and I guess that's a point in question there, because he makes the point of saying, this is Avi Yemini and his boss, is that you have all these people in Davos right now as we speak at the World Economic Forum, and they just are not, I'm sure they're going to be aware of who Avi is by now, but they're walking through the streets expecting to be asked softball type questions, no curveballs, just a softball. Questions from media so that they can spruik their narrative. Would the CEO of Pfizer, and it was put to him again, a lot of people now know that Pfizer have incurred in the US the largest ever fine for malfeasance, I guess, with some of their vaccinations, not this vaccinations, but previous vaccinations. Maybe just see if I can get that headline. No, you probably would know about that, as I say, because I think I've just covered this this stream long enough. But yeah, he certainly wasn't prepared for that, and Avi did exceptionally well to stay with them. You can see the pace in which they moved and what they did. Their people around pushing and shoving and hipping and shouldering to make sure that Avi and his boss, Isra, I think it is, could not ask those questions. So on that note, I think, again, thank you very much for your comments. Thank you for those that have joined the stream from the outset, and we will see what unfolds in the coming days, and will we actually get a sniff of just how bad these polling figures are. And I guess, as I said, if there was speculation, what is the dirt? What is the dirt on Jacinda Ardern that is such that causes her to step down within 2 weeks as Prime Minister? So thank you, Jane, for Ezra Levant. Thank you. There we go. Yes, thank you for that particular comment. I'm guessing people have seen it by now. Ezra, yes, it is a man. People have seen that. Do I play it? Yes or no? Okay. Quick comment. Those that are on the stream now, I guess for your benefit, here's an opportunity for an interactive feedback. Have you seen the stream? What I'm talking about by Rebel News, and let's just see if I can bring it up. If enough comments come through, that I will play it, and if not, I will end the stream. I'm just. Yep, so comments coming through, seen it. People, I'm sure, those on this channel would be aware of all the different things that would come into fruition. I'm just looking at one that's just coming up now, talking about about transgenderism and what's actually happening there. Oh, one thing I will say that today, I guess Premier Mark McGowan, and this is stepping away from Jacinda Ardern, but just to end the stream. So Premier Mark McGowan has been in the media today talking about what he's calling an independent inquiry in relation to his management and his government's management of COVID-19. So that has commenced today. So I certainly will be keeping my finger on the pulse in relation to that. And whatever information I can get from the parliamentary website, I'll be compiling in the stream. In terms of trying to get the information out quickly, this is probably the quickest and easiest way to do it. With some notice, I will have some of the team here that can drive everything behind the scenes. which means that I don't have to worry about trying to play the videos and figuring out why the audio is not working on all the clips. But yeah, keep an eye on that, and let's just see. I think I did hear that John Day, at Liberal Party, and also ex-police minister, he has been appointed to this independent inquiry. There was a medical doctor that they've also appointed. I mean, again, you know, slim pickings in terms of who has the opportunity. You know, is it really a balanced independent panel, or is it a balanced that that is not? Here's an opportunity. Think about this. So Dr. Peter McCulloch, and there is a push by federal Labor politicians to stop him coming to Australia next month. He's doing a tour. Unfortunately, he won't be coming to Perth, but an international expert in terms of well, his background, been involved. You know, would you like to see somebody like that be given an opportunity to talk on this panel independently? If they really want to make it independent, then make it independent. And I'm sure you know, that would be something that I would pay money to sit down and get him to offer the advice as to what he thinks in relation to the government advice, which we know the government have not and have done much work to ensure that they do not release the information that they are that they're basing the health conditions on. So I think yep, so plenty of comments on that one there. Yep, most published doctor in the world. Thank you there very much there, John, for that. And I'm sure it's unfortunate. Maybe that's time for another stream. Maybe that's I can do a stream and push this out and say, you know, Dr. Peter McCulloch, come to Perth, Western Australia. You have people here that have been under the influence of Premier Mark McGowan's heavy mandates and his push for the vaccine. You know, I guess it would cost a lot of money for you to come around, but if needed be, I could pretty much reach out with some contacts and organise a venue and get you talking there. Whether it would be the numbers that would be anticipated to turn up, I would suggest not. You'd be looking at somewhere like where I saw recently Dr. Jordan Peterson, 10,000 plus people, and there was people screaming for those tickets to come and have a listen to what he had to say. I would think the same would be here in Perth. But there we go. On that note, I am going to end the stream and say thank you very much for watching. And to those that have commented, thank you very much.